In the quiet village of Uru, everyone knew everything about everybody. The wind carried news faster than the town crier. Secrets didn't stay hidden for long, and once the market women started talking, the whole village would echo the same story before sunset. And one name was always on their lips. Nne. She wasn't a queen. She wasn't a princess either. She had no husband, no father, no mother, and no family. Yet, whenever she walked past the village square, it was like the air stopped turning. The boys would stare, the men would smile and hide it, and the women would frown, roll their eyes and hiss as if she has very present was poison. She never called her sister, they never called her madam, they never even called her auntie. They simply called her the one, or worse, the prostitute. Nena lived in a small mud house on the edge of the village, not far from the stream where women fetch water. Her compound was always clean. Her flowers bloomed. Her roof didn't leak. Her wrapper was always ironed. Her skin smooth like fresh palm oil, and her voice soft and calm like the evening breeze. But none of that mattered. To them, she was shame, a bad example, a woman who used her body to earn money, a woman they said no one should ever become. She sleeps with every man that passes, they said. She destroyed people's marriages, they spat. Even the pastor's son visit her hut at night. But no one asked why. No one asked why she became who she was. They only judged her by what they thought they saw. Long ago, Nne had a family. She had a father who taught her how to fish, a mother who plaited her hair every Sunday, and a younger brother, Ifeanyi, who always held her hand when they walked to the market. They were poor, but they were happy. Until sickness came. First, her mother started coughing blood. It was a real sickness. Then, her father collapsed in the yam field. After a few days, the father packed up his bag and left. The mother died within weeks. Her brother got taken by an uncle in the city who never looked back. Nne was left alone at the age of 15. She worked on farms. She washed clothes. She fetched water for old women. But hunger was stronger than pride, and poverty was louder than dignity. One day, while begging for Gary in the next village, a man called her. His name was Uncle Chuka. He gave her food, he gave her clothes, he gave her a place to sleep. Then one night, he came into her room. She was just 16. She cried, begged, and screamed, but no one came to her rescue. And the next morning, she was thrown out. She had nothing left but the clothes she wore, and so her life began, not by choice, but by force. When she arrived at Uru village, she had only one wrapper and a cooking spoon. She worked hard to earn a little money. She fried akara by the roadside. She sold palm oil in bottles. But no one really wanted to help a girl with no parents, no husband, and no family name. That's when the first offer came. A man from the city stopped by, gave her money, just to talk to him in private. She needed that money to survive, and from that day, more came. The butcher, the trader, the headmaster, the church elder, even the chief. They came to her quietly. They knocked on her door at night, afraid of being seen. And then they opened the door, not because she wanted to, but because she had no one else to open one for her. Now, years later, her name had become a curse in the village. No woman let her husband near her. No mother allowed their daughters to greet her. Even children were warned to stay far away from her compound. She was alone, but behind that strong, proud face, behind the beautiful wrapper and painted lips, was a heart full of pain and a life full of tears. Every night, she sat on her bamboo mat, looked up at the stars, and whispered one prayer: God, is there still a future for someone like me? One day, a small boy named Chuka came to her door crying. Nne bent down and wiped his face. What happened, Mom? My mother beat me because I greeted you. She said you are evil. Nena didn't cry. She only smiled sadly and gave the boy some granite. Go home, my child. Your mother is not wrong. She just doesn't know my story. But even as the boy ran away, her chest ached as if it had been cut open. How long would they hate her without knowing her truth? How long would she carry a name that didn't belong to her? She wanted to change. She wanted peace. But who would believe that a prostitute would become more than what people said? The wind blew her that night. Her lamp flickered. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Nate stood at her door and looked out of the village that never loved her. But deep inside, a small light still burned. She whispered again in the sky, I may be broken, but I'm alive. And as long as I breathe, I will not give up. That was the beginning. The day Nne the prostitute decided that she would write her own story. It was on a Monday morning. The sun had barely risen, but Nne was already awake, sweeping the compound with her old broom. The sound of the broom on dry sand echoed softly in the quiet air. Her wrapper was tied tightly around her waist. Her hair was neatly packed. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were wide open, watching and waiting. She had been having the same nightmare for long. A dream where someone knocked on her door, not to use her body, but to change her life. She didn't understand it, but deep down, she felt something was coming, something different, something strange. That same morning, while she was washing her pot near the back of her hut, a white car drove slowly into the village. The engine made soft humming sound as it moved through the narrow, dusty road. Children ran after it, laughing and shouting, Car, car, car. The car stopped at the village square, and out stepped a man in a black suit. He wore dark sunglasses, carried a leather bag, and looked like someone who didn't belong to the place like Uru. His name was Mr. Obina. He was a social worker, a man from the city who worked with poor communities, trying to help people who had been forgotten. He had come to Uru on a government assignment to choose someone from the village for a new empowerment program, and he had one question for the village elders. Is there anyone who needs help but has been ignored? The elders sat under the big mango tree, scratching their grey beards and whispering among themselves. They looked at each other. They looked at the sky, but none of them said Nne's name. Not even one. They spoke of young men who wanted to learn trade. They spoke of widows who had children. They spoke of farmers who had no land. But no one said a word about the woman who had lived alone at the edge of the village. The woman they called the prostitute because of them. She was not worth saving. But one person spoke. Mama Gboma, the oldest woman in the village. She didn't like gossip. She didn't talk too much. But when she spoke, people listened. She cleared her throat and pointed her shaking finger towards the road. There is one person, she said, a woman who has suffered more than all of us, a woman who this village has thrown away. The others frowned. One of them hissed and said, You mean that one? But Mama Gboma nodded. Yes, that one. Her name is Nne. And so that evening, Mr. Obina knocked on Nne's door. Nne opened it slowly, thinking it was another man coming to steal her night. But this one was different. He didn't look at her body, he looked at her eyes. He removed his sunglasses and said softly, Good evening, madam. I came to talk, not to touch. Nne blinked in surprise. Nobody had called her madam before. She didn't even know whether to run or stay. They sat outside her hut on a small wooden bench. Mr. Obina asked her questions, real questions about her life, her plans, her dreams. And for the first time in years, Nne spoke, not with shame, not with fear, but with truth. She told him everything, how she lost her mother, how her father abandoned them, how she was betrayed at 16, how she fought to survive in a village that gave her no chance. And when she finished talking, there were tears in her eyes, but they were not tears of weaknesses. They were tears of freedom. Mr. Obina nodded slowly. You are strong, Une, he said. You have suffered too much, but I believe your story is not over. He handed her a brown envelope. Inside was a letter, an invitation, a chance to travel to the city, learn a skill and start a new life. Une froze. She looked at the paper, then at him, then back at the paper. But I'm just a prostitute, she whispered. He smiled gently. No, Nne, you are a survivor, and survivors can rise again. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat under the moonlight, holding the letter close to her chest. She thought of her past. She thought of her shame. But most of all, she thought of her future. For the first time in a long time, she saw a door opening, not a door to her room, but a door to her destiny. She stood up, looked up at the stars, and whispered, I don't know how, but I will go. I will learn and I will rise. Even if the world still calls me names, I will no longer live by their words. The next morning, she packed her bag, just one wrapper, one Bible, and a heart full of hope. As she walked through the village, heads turned, children whispered, women hissed, men looked away. But Nne did not look down. She held her head high. But something had changed. She was no longer walking with shame. She was walking with a purpose. The journey to the city was long. Nne sat beside Mr. Obina in the back seat of the white car. Her heartbeat was fast like a drum in the village festival. She had never left Nru before. Every tree, every hill, every river they passed through looked new and strange. Her eyes were wide open, taking in everything. She held her bag tightly, her wrapper, her Bible, and her hope. Mr. Obina looked at her and smiled gently. You are safe now, he said. She nodded slowly, still unsure if it was all real. The city was loud. Cars honked, people shouted. Tall buildings touched the sky. The smell of fried food mixed with scent of fuel and dust. Nina stepped out of the car and froze. So many people, so much noise. She felt small, like a single drop of water in a big ocean. But she remembered and whispered from the night before, I will go, and I will learn, and I will rise. She took a deep breath and followed Miss Tobina. They arrived at a tall yellow building. The sign in front read, Women of Hope Empowerment Center. Inside there were other women, young and old. Some had babies on their back. Some had scars on their faces. Some with eyes full of stories. They looked at Nne. Nne looked at them, but no one spoke. But in that silence, she felt something warm, something she had never felt before. She felt seen. She felt accepted. The next few weeks was not easy. She had to wake up early. She had to clean the hall, wash her clothes, and attend classes. She was learning tailoring, how to sew, how to measure, how to cut straight lines with shaky hands. At first, she was slow. Her stitches were not straight. Her hands trembled. The other women whispered behind her back, Isn't that the village prostitute? What is she doing here? But Nne didn't stop. Each day she practiced more. Each night she cried less. Each week she smiled a little brighter. One afternoon, while trying to sew a seam, she mistakenly cut it, but her tutor was kind enough to help her. The next chapter of Nne's life has begun not with a celebration, but with a question, what next? She had graduated, she had certificates, she could sew, but where will she go? Where will she start from? The empowerment center has done its part, but now Nne had to face the world, a world that once spat her name in shame. Auntie Former called her into the office. Nne, she said gently, you have done very well. We are proud of you. But you need to know, the next part will not be easy. Nne nodded, her eyes serious. I'm not afraid, she said. But deep down, she was. Miss Tobina had already helped her find a small room at the edge of her Jagunle. Not fancy, but clean and safe. A table, a mattress, and a small mirror on the wall. She used part of her starter fund to buy a sewing machine, second hand with a wobbly leg, but it worked. Every morning, she opened her window, placed her sign outside, in a fashion house, custom sewing and repairs. At first, no one came. Some stared, some whispered, some laughed. But one day, an elderly woman knocked. My wrapper is torn, she said. Can you fix it? Nne smiled. Yes, Mama. That one repair turned into two, then three, then 10. Still, life in the city was rough. Rent was due, food was expensive. Sometimes Nne went to bed hungry. Other times she drank garri and water and told herself this is just the beginning. She didn't return to her old life, even when some men came by offering money for one night. She shut the door and shut her ears. She wasn't that girl anymore. She had paid with her body before. Now she wanted to earn with her hands. But one day trouble came. A young girl, barely 17, came to her shop with a swollen face and no slippers. She sat on the ground and wept. My madam said I'm useless, that I should go back to the street. Her name was Chisom. And in her, Nne saw her old self. She gave the girl water, she gave her food, and then she did something bold. She told her, "You will stay with me." Chisom slept on the mat beside Nne's mattress. They shared food, they shared tears, and Nne began to teach her how to sew. One Sunday morning, while ironing a blouse, Nne looked at Chisom's face and whispered, "World won't see your pain, but I do, and I promise I won't let you fall like I did." Chisom hugged her tightly, crying into her chest. In that moment, Nne became more than just a survivor. She became a mother, a teacher, a shelter. As months passed, the name Nne Fashion House began to spread. People came from nearby streets asking her to sew clothes for weddings, birthdays, naming ceremonies. Some just came to sit, to listen to her words simply, but full of healing. She would tell them they called me a prostitute, but I refused to die with the name. I wore scars like clothes now, not to hide it, but to show that I made it. If God can lift me, He can lift you too. One morning, she received a letter. It was from the Women of Hope Empowerment Center. She had been nominated as a guest mentor for the next batch of women. She read the letters 3 times before sitting down slowly. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not of pain, but of purpose. When she walked back into the center that day, the younger women looked at her in awe. Gone was the broken girl who once sat at the back of the tailoring class. In her place was a strong woman, head high, voice firm, presence powerful. She stood in front of them and said, "I was once like you, shamed, forgotten, used. But now look at me, not perfect, but not hopeless. If I can rise, you can rise too." That night, Nne walked home under the moonlight with Chisom beside her. They passed by some street girls standing at the corner. Nne paused at them and silently prayed in her heart, "Lord, if you ever bless me more, let me build a home where girls like this can come and heal." She no longer lived for herself. She was now a light in a dark place, a hand for the fallen, a voice for the silence. And though the journey was far from over, Nne now walked with something she never had before, a purpose that could not be taken away. The sun was rising over Ajegunle, but Nne was already awake. She sat in silence, staring at her old sewing machine, the same second-hand one she bought from shaking hands, and a hopeful heart. The wobbling legs still hadn't been fixed, but somehow it stood firm, just like her. Outside her window, the signpost still read, "Nne Fashion House, Custom Sewing and Repairs." But now people read the name with respect, no longer with disgust. The morning she gathered her girls, Chisom and others she had taken in. They sat in a circle on the floor, holding pieces of cloth and shared memories. "I have something to say," Nne said. They listened, wide-eyed. "I started this journey with a name that the world gave me, prostitute. A name that followed me like a shadow, even in my sleep. A name that tried to define me." She paused. "But today, I laid the name down." Chisom blinked confused. "Lay it down?" Nne smiled. "Yes, because I have outgrown it." She stood up, picked up a black marker, and walked to the wall where the old faded title was painted, "Nne the Village Prostitute." And with a strong hand, she drew a line through it. Under it, she wrote, "Nne, Woman of Purpose." The room was silent. One of the girls whispered, "Mama Nne, we love you." And for the first time in a long time, Nne felt the tears fall freely. Later that week, she took the award she had received and placed it in a wooden frame above her sewing corner, not to boast, but to remind herself and everyone who walked in that you can rise from the lowest place and still shine like stars. Months passed, Nne's fashion house became a place of healing. She partnered with the Women of Hope Center to open a small tailoring school. Girls came from far away, some with babies on their back, some with nothing but pain in their hearts. But Nne didn't see their shame. She saw their potentials, and one by one she gave them not just skills, but a second chance. Then came the letter she had waited her whole life to read. It was from her village, from her father. It read, "Nne, I was wrong. I let the world punish you. I didn't protect you when you needed me most. I see what you have become, and I'm proud. Please come home. Let me call you daughter again." She read it over and over, and finally she cried not from pain, but from peace. A few weeks later, Nne stood at the edge of her childhood village. People whispered as she passed, but this time the whispers were different. That's her. She's the one who made it. The one they called Ashawo, but now she's a blessing. She walked to her father's house where the old man waited with shaking hands. They didn't speak, they just hugged. And in that embrace, years of silence melted. In the final weeks of the year, Nne had a special event in Ajegunle, a free fashion show organized by the girls she had trained. The team, from shame to strength. Each girl walked proudly down the runway, wearing clothes they made themselves, their scars hidden behind stitches of courage, their pain stitched into power. When it was Nne's turn, she wore a plain white gown and walked to the microphone. And she said, "They named me by mistake, but I remained myself by my mercy. I'm not who I was. I'm not who I became." The crowd stood. Some clapped, some wept. But all knew Nne had not just changed her story. She had changed others too. That night, as the moon bathed the city in silver light, Nne sat alone on her veranda. Jason brought her a cup of warm tea. They didn't say much, but Nne looked into the night sky and whispered, "Thank you, God, for letting the girl they threw away become the woman they now run to."